Alright guys, it has been about a year since I've gone through my PlayStation 1 collection. I have gotten a lot of games since then, so let's get started. Alright, first up I go over the big box stuff I have. I've got Lunar 1 and I've got Lunar 2, both complete in really good condition. Honestly, the art on the boxes are the main reason I got them. I still haven't played them. I'll play them one day, but these are just the type of things where if you can get them in the wild, you just gotta hold on to them, because this is something. I've only had the opportunity to get them once, and I've never seen them since. I've also got a Pocket Station complete in box. I've never actually used it. I don't think it's compatible with any American games, but I do know that... Actually, I do have Crash 3, the Japanese version. We'll check that out later, and I know that is compatible with this, so maybe I'll use it on that sometime. And then up here at the top, just because I don't have any more room for it on my 2 rows, Xenogears. It's just a cool looking game. I haven't played it yet, but one day. Okay, moving on to the rows. First off, we got A Bug's Life. It's a really corny 3D platformer, but one of my small sub goals for my collection is to have every single mainline Pixar movie up to Up, because those are the only Pixar movies I care about, having the game associated with the movie. So had to get this at some point. Next I've got Ape Escape. It's not the best game I've ever played. I don't think it's aged too well, but it's still a decent time. And also I should mention, if I really don't have much to say on a game, I'm not going to say much. And this is one of them. Midway Arcade Greatest Hits. Yeah. Activision Classics. I guess I should mention, I'm not going to really grow my PS1 collection any more than these 2 rows. So inevitably when I get new games, what I'm going to do is just take out games like this that I don't really care about, throw them in a bin to trade in or sell or whatever, and just replace games and kind of increase the quality of my collection rather than just have a giant, endless shelf of garbage. Yeah, Activision Classic games. Next up, got Battle Arena Toshinden. This is one of the oldest games I've actually had in my collection. I remember I bought it with this system bundle box right here. I got this a long time ago, but yeah, I mean, it's a really mediocre 3D fighting game. Tekken is better than this in every single way. Although Battle Arena Toshinden 2 is moderately better, but definitely not as good as Tekken. Next up, got one of my grails, The Bombing Islands. This is a weird one. It's like a weird puzzle game where you use bombs to blow up sections of islands and stuff, or something I don't know. I played it for 10 minutes and it wasn't really that interesting. Bowling. This is one of those weird PS1 games where the spine is a different color than the normal PS1 games. I don't know what was up with that. It's all these weird, obscure Japanese games, but this one is just bowling. But it is published by HTech, so I guess that's something. Next up, got Breakout. I don't know what this is. Okay, these next 2 games I'm going to talk about together. Breath of Fire 3 and Breath of Fire 4. I haven't beaten either, but I've gotten roughly 8 hours into each of them, and then I dropped them. It's not that they were bad games. It's just, I don't really know why I dropped them. Because I really liked them while I was playing them. Combat was cool. Characters were cool. The art styles. Oh my god. This is what PS1 really did best, was 2D sprites on 3D backgrounds. And the isometric views of both games were just absolutely fantastic. These are great RPGs, and Capcom RPGs too. I don't know if Capcom made any other RPGs besides the Breath of Fire series, but yeah, these games are fantastic. Next I've got Bug Riders with a really weird spine font. I don't know why it's so stretched out, but the game is a weird racing game where you ride on giant bugs. I don't really like it. Next up is one of the... Actually, if I'm not mistaken, this is technically the lowest valued game I have in my entire collection. Excluding stuff like Destiny or Mag, which are unplayable games, but Burst Trick Wakeboarding. I played it for a bit. It's fine enough. Next I've got Bushido Blade. I really love the cover on this thing. I haven't played it yet. Well, I think I've played a demo once of Bushido Blade, but... Next I've got The Cat in the Hat the game. This is one of the strangest games I've ever played. It's kind of like an interactive novel/adventure game. The sprite work on it is atrocious. I don't remember if there was even any music or sound effects in the game. It's a weird game. If you find this game for a buck or two, check it out. I've never played anything like it. Next up, got Casper Friends Around the World. I've never played it. It looks like it's a platformer of some sort. Could be good. Next up, got Castlevania Symphony of the Night. This is a repro case. I found the disc by itself a long time ago for dirt cheap. I've tried playing this game a few times. I never actually tried to sit down and play through the whole thing. That'll be one day, because just the intro alone got me really intrigued with the rest of the game. I know it's supposed to be one of the greatest games of all time. I mean, hell, it's got a whole genre named after it, that and Metroid. So definitely be checking this out one day. Next I've got Chrono Cross. I got this copy right here, complete in box, really good condition for $5 at a GameStop once. I still have not finished playing Chrono Trigger 1. I'm not sure if it's really required to play the first one to play Chrono Cross, but I'll play this one day. Next up, got Cool Borders 3. I know the Cool Borders franchise was the staple snowboarding franchise in the PlayStation. I might have played this before. I don't know. Cubics. To me, this looks like it'd be like a really rare game or something, but it's really not. I've never played it before. Cool artwork, though. Next up, we got Dance Dance Revolution. I don't have the pad to play. Well, actually, I do have the pad on the PS2. I just got one recently, so I wonder if it would work on for the PS1 game. But I never really was into DDR. I kind of just really love the artwork on the manual. That's the main reason I'm keeping it. But yeah, and I'm sure there's some songs in here I would probably like. Next up, we've got Darkstone. This is another game that looks like it would be a really rare game, but it's really not. I think it's a dungeon crawler. But yeah, I love the artwork on the front. One day I'll get to this. Deception 3. I ended up picking this up in a lot of PS1 games. I didn't know that this was a valuable game. I guess it's some sort of horror game where you set up traps to kill enemies or solve puzzles. Something like that. Haven't gotten around to it. Next up is Die Hard Trilogy. I guess it's a game loosely based on the first 3 Die Hard movies. Have not got around to it. I just realized that my favorite games of all time are not actually right here, and that I technically skipped them, so let me go over them now. The entire Crash Bandicoot franchise. Crash Bandicoot 1. This is a game that has really grown on me through the years. I used to hate this game as a kid, and that's mainly just because I started with Crash 3, and then I played Crash 2, and then I played Crash 1. God, as I've gotten older, I've really come to appreciate this game. Honestly, I think this is the best looking out of the 3 in terms of art style. The music has really grown on me. Yes, the gameplay is a bit stiff. Crash definitely does not control as well as he does in Crash 2 or Crash 3. But I think the levels pretty much compensate for that. They don't expect you to do anything crazy like they do in Crash 2 or Crash 3. And man, just going from point A to point B in this game is so fun. But going for 100% is an absolute nightmare, and I just don't recommend that to anybody. I don't even like doing it. But just playing this game any percent is one of the most fun experiences I think you can have in a 3D platformer. Next up is Crash 2. I love Crash 2. Pretty much everything about it is just better than the original. Well, maybe except for art style, but yeah, music is fantastic. Gameplay, Crash controls so well in this game. I think this is probably the game where he controls the absolute best. Movement is so tight. There's so much technique to the way you can move Crash in this game. It's ridiculous. And also, something I didn't mention, well, the previous game wasn't too good at this, but this game has extremely good animation quality with the in-game characters. Cortex's mouth movements in the portal room are absolutely fantastic. You compare this to something like Sonic Adventure, which came out 2 years after, and it's night and day. It's incredible what Naughty Dog was able to do back in the day on the PS1. Now, the in-game models weren't very high polygon, but the actual animation quality of what, you know, how they were moving was like almost Pixar quality at the time. And it still holds up really well to this day. Crash 2 is an absolutely fantastic game. And then there's Crash 3. This is my favorite game of all time, mainly because it is the first game I've ever played and ever beaten. It's definitely, I don't think, as solid as Crash 2 in totality. Definitely looks amazing, has great music, but the gameplay is kind of where it falls apart for me. I do love playing this game. I do love 100%ing this game, but stuff like the motorcycle levels, they control badly. The airplane levels are kind of bad. I don't quite like that Crash's movement in this game is momentum-based when you get in the air versus Crash 2. Crash 2 is just wherever you're moving the stick, that's where Crash is going to go. This game, it's like once you commit to a jump, you're committed. Like, you can't really move too much after that. But overall, still a solid game. Definitely better than a lot of the 3D platformers that were coming out at the time. And again, animation quality with the characters in the game, absolutely top-notch. And then there's my favorite kart racer of all time. I think this is better than any Mario Kart game that has ever come out. Crash Team Racing. Just the movement in this game is incredible. The way you're able to handle the karts in this game is... there's nothing like it. I mean, it feels incredible. The boost system is absolutely fantastic. The levels look great. The character models don't look that great. But I still think they look better than the Mario Kart N64 sprites. I love this game so much. I don't think there's a kart racer that comes even close to this. And then there's Crash Bash. This game sucks. Like, it's a bad party game. This does not come anywhere close to any Mario Party game. Most of the mini-games are, I mean, there are some good mini-games here, but oh my god, single player, this game is horrible. It's incredibly janky with a lot of the mini-games, and the fact that they make you replay levels over and over and over again to get to, nah, this game is terrible. Next up, we got Disruptor. This is Insomniac's first game. I recently picked this up. I've been looking for it for a while. I played it. It's not that good. It's got some really corny acting in it with the FMV cutscenes. It's not a Doom clone, but I don't know. It's okay. Only reason I have it is because it's an Insomniac game. I'm trying to have every single Insomniac game. Next up, we get Ironhander. Again, same thing with Castlevania. I picked these bolts up. They'll lose discs for cheap. This is a repro case, but this game is fantastic. I've played it for about 30 minutes, just doing a first time run of it, and Runs in 60 frames per second, which is awesome, especially considering how much is going on in the screen at one time. I really don't have very many shoot 'em ups in my collection. Actually, this might be the only shoot 'em up I have in my collection. Now that I'm thinking about it, but it's really great, and one day I'm gonna beat this game. Next up, we got Final Doom. It's Doom on the PS1. I got this copy at GameStop a while ago. Yeah, it's Doom. Next up is Final Fantasy VII. I've only played this one once to test it out. I've never actually played through the original Final Fantasy VII. I have played the remake, and I like the remake a lot. Still haven't played Rebirth, but yeah, one day I'll get to this game. Same thing kind of goes for Final Fantasy VIII. I've heard a lot about it, haven't played it, but I have heard a lot of negative things about this game compared to Final Fantasy VII regarding the story and especially the gameplay. So I'm not really too keen on getting to this one. But one game I really have played is Final Fantasy IX. I beat this game last year. It is absolutely fantastic. Love the characters, love the music. It looks like this is probably one of the best looking games on the PS1, and it came out, I think, like what, a few months before the PS2 came out, something like that. So this came out right at the end of the PS1's life cycle, and you could tell because they really took advantage of every single ounce of power from that system. You compare the CGI cutscenes here to the CGI cutscenes in Final Fantasy VII, and it's night and day. It's incredible how much they were able to improve in, like, what, the 3 years between these games? Absolutely fantastic. It's just a good game. Final Fantasy Tactics, I got this at a half-price books for like $5. I don't know what they were doing pricing it that low, but I've been looking for it for a while. I have found the greatest hits version plenty of times, but I've wanted the Black Label version for a long time, and now I got it. Next up is Frogger. He's back. But Frogger 2, this is one of the best platformers ever made. Gameplay, fantastic. It's actually got an interesting and funny single-player mode on it, where you're trying to rescue all of your children back from Swampy the Crocodile. He steals all your children, you gotta go get them back. Really great game. Excellent music. Just everything about this game is just fantastic. There's no reason for this game to be this good, considering that like the game that came before it, just Frogger on the PS1, is just kind of generic Frogger, and this is just like a step above in every single way possible. Next up is Gauntlet Legends. I played it for about an hour. It seemed like a good sort of dungeon crawler game, but those games just aren't really my favorite. Next up is Gex. I really don't like Gex that much. I don't think it's a great 2D platformer, and oh my god, some of the lines that Gex spews out are just really freaking annoying and have not aged very well. I've also got Gex 3. I'm missing Gex 2. One day I'll get it, but yeah, I haven't even played Gex 3. Next up is Gran Turismo and Gran Turismo 2. These games are just kind of hard to go back to because they were trying to be as like realistic as possible, but on a system like the PS1, that's just not going to age well. Like, I think graphically there's a charm to these games. Like, it looks funny seeing them try to have like realistic cars and like, it's funny in like a meta sort of way, thinking that like a grown man would have bought this game back in '99 or whatever and seen the cars in the game and be like, wow, those are real. Like, graphics are never gonna get better than this. Like, that's funny to think about, but other than that, I don't know. I don't think these games are really worth going back to when games like Gran Turismo 6, 7 exists. Next up is Grand Tour Racing, 98. Next up is Heart of Darkness. This is one I've been meaning to get for a while. It just looks like a really cool cinematic platformer. Next I've got Hot Shots Golf. I kind of just have it out of obligation to have a golfing game on the PS1, and it's a PS1 exclusive, so it's kind of cool. Next up is Jet Moto 2. This is one I used to play a lot as a kid, and man, was it hard going back to it. The frame rate is so bad in this game, and it's so weird controlling the... What are they called? Are they called Jet Motos? I don't know what the vehicles are actually called, but yeah, not really that great going back to it. Next up is Kiss Pinball, Knockout Kings 2000, Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver. This is one I spent a good amount of time with. I don't think I played the best version of it. I'm sure if I played the Dreamcast version, I would have liked it a lot more. I just really couldn't get past the frame rate issues in the PS1 version, but one thing I will give it, the voice acting is absolutely incredible for a game from, what, 1999? Alright, next up we got Legend of Dragoon. I found this for like 15 bucks at GameStop, so that's why I bought it. Next up, got the first Medal of Honor. I've actually heard this is a pretty good game. Haven't played it yet. Next up, we got a game that surprised me. Medieval. I knew nothing about this game going into it. It was just really fun. Movement in this game is fantastic. Like, what's the guy? Sir Daniel, I think is his name. He controls really well. And combat in the game is really just fascinating. And the game is loaded with charm. Oh my god. Like, every level, every character, every line of dialogue feels like a labor of love. Like, this is a really good game. Got Medieval 2, I just picked this up recently. Have not played it yet. Next up, got Metal Gear Solid. Definitely one of the most ambitious games of all time. In terms of if it's held up to this day, I think for the most part, yeah. I think the gameplay actually is pretty fun. It is a little corny seeing, you know, all the characters talk and do movements without any sort of facial animations, but I think Kojima did the best he could at the time with the technology that he had. And in totality, I think this is still just a really great game to this day. I've also got the VR missions. All right, next up, we got probably one of the worst RPGs I've ever experienced, Monster Seed. This is like baby's first RPG. I could not get past like the first hour of this game. It is like embarrassingly bad. Next up, got Mortal Kombat Trilogy. I got this for like 15 bucks at GameStop a while ago. It's Mortal Kombat on the PS1. Next I've got one of my childhood favorites, Monsters Inc. Scream Team. I love this game so much. It's technically, I guess, a prequel to Monsters Inc. The real prequel to not Monsters University. That movie is terrible. But anyways, no, this game is great. I like playing it. The gameplay is really basic. I will say Mike and Sully, they actually do control pretty well. But the game is like piss easy. Like, can you even die in this game? Yeah, you can. There is a life system, but enemies don't really do damage to you. It's kind of like a scavenger hunt sort of game. It's not really like a super engaging platformer, but it's fine enough. If you're a real hardcore like Monsters Inc. fan or a real hardcore Pixar fan, you might enjoy this game. Next I've got Moto Racer 2. Don't know anything about it. Next I've got Namco Museum Volume 3. I don't really have any goals to get the whole like Namco Black Label set so that it all spells out Namco or whatever. The only reason I have this version is because I had Volume 3 growing up. Man, that museum music is so nostalgic in this game. Next up is NFL Blitz. If there was going to be a football game I was going to keep on the PS1, it was going to be this one. Next up is Nuclear Strike. I probably have seen this game 10 trillion times out in the wild, and one of those times I just decided to pick it up. Next up, got Oddworld Abe's Exodus. I think this is the sequel to Abe's Odyssey. I'm not entirely sure. Regardless, I haven't played it. Next, I've got Pac-Man World. This is a fun game. It's not the best 3D platformer I've ever played, but it's probably better than it has any right to be. Like, you can tell that Namco put a decent amount of effort into trying to make this game as good as possible, and it's a decently fun time. Okay, next game is one that really surprised me. Parasite Eve. This game is amazing. I think it holds up extremely well to this day, and mainly because of the gameplay. I didn't know anything about this game before trying it for the first time, and I thought it was just going to be another JRPG. But it's not. It's an action RPG, and it's a really good action RPG. The story, honestly, it lost me by the end, but I didn't care because I thought the characters were really good. Oh my god, the music in this game is freaking amazing. But yeah, gameplay was great. The only thing I will say, there's only one flaw I have with this game. And it is a minor spoiler, so if you care about that, skip ahead like a minute. At the very end of the game, after you beat the final boss, all phases, it turns into like a sludge monster. And you're supposed to run away from it and get to the end of the ship and like blow it up or whatever. You're supposed to run away from it. It's chasing you the entire time. Now, if it touches you, it kills you instantly. And there's no way for you to save or do anything. But the game baits you. When you walk into the first room, there's a telephone, which is what you use to save. If you go up to the telephone, it just says it doesn't work. Now, I did that the first time playing, and what happened was that wasted enough time and enough movement to where I couldn't get to the next door without the thing catching me. So when it caught up to me, I thought, oh man, I'm gonna have to do like a small little boss battle and then it'll send me out. And like, oh, that's gonna suck because it's gonna drain my resources, and if I keep getting touched by this thing, it's gonna drain my resources to the point where I'm just gonna die eventually. Nope, it just one-shot kills you if it touches you. That doesn't really make any sense to me from a gameplay or a narrative perspective, because I just spent like 10 minutes beating the final boss, destroying like the most powerful phases of the final boss, but then the little tiny sludge monster that's like trying to scrounge to survive, if that thing touches me, it kills me in one shot. Like, that just doesn't make any sense to me. And from what I can gather, there's nothing else in the game that acts like that. I don't think there's, I'm trying to think. I don't think there was any other moment in the game where like something like that would happen. So like, you would not expect something like that to happen as a new player to the game. But other than that, the game is freaking amazing. Next up, I've got Pine-to-Be. This is one of the weirdest games I've ever played. I couldn't get past like the first 15 minutes of it just because of how annoying it was. And if I remember correctly, yeah, it came out in 2002. So that's how you know it's a quality PS1 game. Next, I've got a PS1 jam pack. It's a bunch of demos. Next, I've got Polaris Snowcross. I think I got this for 50 cents at a thrift store in Montana. Oh, okay. I guess I lied earlier. Hot Shots Golf is not the only golf game I have. I also have Putter Golf. Although I think I only kept it because it's an age-tech game. Next, I've got Hubert. You know, honestly, it's actually not bad. I've played it before. Graphically, I think the art style, it looks really good. And I think it has a single-player mode on it too, which they put a single-player mode in a Qbert game where, like, that's just bizarre to me. Next up, got Rascal. Next up, got probably the best racing game on the PS1, Ridge Racer 4. This game's fantastic. Everything about it. It doesn't feel like a kart racer, but it's also not like a racing simulator. The cars have this, like, fantastic, sort of real, but mainly arcadey feel to them that is just, like, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Aesthetically, the game is fantastic. All the menus look great. The single player is cool with you, like, interacting with, like, the team mechanic and whatnot. Him talking crap on you if you suck. Music, top notch. Even the intro cutscene's awesome. Like, this game's absolutely fantastic. Next up, got Rocket Power Team Rocket Rescue. Next up, got Running Wild. This is one I picked up recently. The only real reason I picked it up is because it's got a direct advertisement for Crash Bandicoot on it, which I think is just cool intrinsically. But I actually played it for a little bit, and it's actually not a bad on-foot racer. It runs at 60 FPS too, which is really impressive for the PS1. And it looks pretty good. So one day I'm going to really have to put some more time into this. Next up, I got Sheep Shrek Treasure Hunt. This game is miserable. SpongeBob SquarePants Super Sponge. Not the best SpongeBob game I've ever played, but not the worst. Alright, next up we'll go over all three of these games. The Spyro trilogy on PS1. Spyro 1, honestly, not my favorite game to go back to. I'll play it every once in a while, but I know this game has its fans, but to me this is not like Crash 1. I think the second game and the third game are just kind of better than this in every way. I don't know, just something about Spyro 1. I can't put my finger on it. I just don't like going back to it. But I really think where it's at is Spyro 2. I love this game. Behind Crash 3, this is probably my favorite platformer on the PS1. I think this improved on everything from Spyro 1. I love the levels in this game. I love the gameplay. Spyro controls so perfectly in this game. It's incredible. Music's fantastic. Characters are funny. Love Spyro 2. And honestly, I've kind of grown on Spyro Year of the Dragon. I used to not like it as much, but after playing it some more, honestly, it's pretty much as good as Spyro 2. There are certain moments in the game that kind of suck, like the Bentley boxing, playing as Agent 9, but they're really not that bad, and they don't take up too much of the game. You know, if Spyro 2 was a 10 out of 10, then this would be a 9 out of 10. Something like that. I don't really think Spyro 2 is a 10 out of 10, but still a great game. Star Wars Masters of Terra Kasai. I don't know. This game sucks. I tried playing it, and it's just a bad fighting game. It's kind of cool seeing the Return of the Jedi, like, characters and stuff in a fighting game, but other than that, it's not good. Next up, we got Tekken 2 and Tekken 3. They're just solid fighting games on the PS1, especially Tekken 3, more so than Tekken 2. But yeah, I'm not really the biggest traditional fighting game fan, so I don't have too much to say on these. Next up, we got Tigger's Honey Hunt. I don't know why this isn't my collection. Next up, we got Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. For me, I didn't grow up on these Pro Skaters, so it's really hard for me to go back to them. They just, I mean, control-wise are relatively bad compared to the later games, but in terms of games on their own, I think they're solid, especially Pro Skater 2. Toy Story 2 on the PS1. Really, really great 3D platformer. Much better than it has any right to be, being a movie tie-in game, but it really is fantastic. Making the game solely focused on Buzz coming to rescue Woody was probably the best decision they could have made, because Buzz works as a 3D platforming character, I think, a lot better than Woody. And so having a whole game focused on him really was the right call. And same developer and same music composer as The Wrath of Cortex. Although, this is a better game. Next up, got Tiger Woods 99. Only reason I have this is because there are certain copies of Tiger Woods 99 that have a hidden South Park episode on them. Unfortunately, this is not one of those copies, but I figured I already had it, so might as well keep it. Next up is Vagrant Story. This is another one of those games where I expected it just to be a, generic JRPG, turn-based combat or whatever, but it's not. It is a, strategy/action RPG with, an isometric view where you change, or not isometric, but, you change view of the world and stuff. It's really cool. It's not what you'd expect. If you don't know anything about this game, I'd say check it out. And also, some of the best cutscene direction I've ever seen in a PS1 game. It almost looks like one of those fan games nowadays that's made to look like a PS1 game, but it has the animation quality and the cutscene direction of a modern game. It's really incredible. Definitely check out this game. Next up, got A Game of Culture, VIP, starring Pamela Anderson. Next up, got Wild Arms 1 and Wild Arms 2. I tried playing the first Wild Arms for 5 or 6 hours. I don't know, I just really couldn't get into it. It just really didn't intrigue me, and the gameplay was pretty by the numbers JRPG stuff, and I have not played Wild Arms 2. Next up, I got Wipeout 3. Really cool game. Love the aesthetic. The menus are so cool, the music's cool. But this game is for a certain type of racing fan because I just couldn't get into it. I guess for the same people who love like the F-Zero type games, which just like super high velocity futuristic racing. This game's for you. I just don't like those type of games, but I can tell this is a really cool game. Next up, I've got WWF SmackDown. Honestly, I don't know why this is in my collection. I really don't like wrestling, but yeah. And lastly, for the American games, got the most American game ever, Xena Warrior Princess. You know, honestly, it's actually not that bad. It's kind of like a character action game, sort of like Devil May Cry from what I remember. And it's a lot better than you think it'd be. So I'll give it a pass. And now I'll go over my Japanese games. First off, I got the first 4 Crash games, the Japanese versions. I really do like the art on these, especially the first game. Oh, actually, from what I remember, yeah, the art on the first game's disc is absolutely incredible. Like, man, they just don't make game disc art like this anymore. Well, pretty soon they're not even going to be making discs, but... And I've always loved the cover to Crash 2. Although, my god, Crash looks ridiculous on the back. I've played through these Japanese games, and they're pretty much just the same games. Unlike the Spyro games. Alright, then we got a few more. Oh yeah, I forgot. I have a second copy of Crash 2 Japanese version. This was a gift from my cousin. I've got Racing Lagoon, which really surprised me. I got this in a massive lot a long time ago. It's like a racing RPG. Really cool aesthetic, but I can't read anything in the game, so hard for me to play it. And then these next games, I kind of just kept them just because they're not worth a lot and they look cool. Legend of Mana, haven't played it because I can't read anything in it. Final Fantasy Collection, the box to me is just like the coolest thing ever. And Chocobo Dungeon 2, or Chocobo Racing 2? I think it's Chocobo Dungeon 2, but the art's cool on it. Okay, and then I guess absolute last thing, I've got a sealed DualShock 1 controller, and then a sealed memory card to match. And that is my entire PS1 collection as of 2024. It's behind the PS2. The PS1 is my favorite console to collect for. Let me know your guys' thoughts on some of the games I talked about. I'm sure I said some absolutely ridiculous things about some of these games, so let me know how wrong I am in the comments, and thank you guys for watching.